Well, let's ask God's blessing on our message. Father, we thank you for this time together, and I just pray you be with me in what I share, and your Spirit guide me, and just be with us as a group. Give us attentive ears, and be with the various questions, and that your Spirit would guide the assembly this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, I guess we seekers know we have finally arrived when cradle Mennonites are trying to sneak in under the name of seekers, so that's a good feeling. You know, over the past 30 or 40 years, there have been thousands of seekers who have found their way into the conservative Anabaptist churches, and my wife Deborah and I are among those. And the question I'm going to be looking at this morning is just what is it that we were seeking? And there actually were, various things for different ones of us, and that's what we'll be talking about. I'm going to just briefly relate my story. Let me see when I'm supposed to be done. Okay. Each of us, I've been talking to a number of you and getting your stories this weekend, and I got to talk to a few people at the Anabaptist Identity Conference and got their stories, and it's been very interesting. We've all had different journeys. There's been similarities, I think, and differences alike. I haven't yet talked to anybody, at least in those particular conferences, who had the same journey as Deborah and I, because we started out as Jehovah's Witnesses. There actually are a few people around the world who have found their ways to Anabaptist circles from Jehovah's Witnesses, but very, very few. I will say that. And I would have thought actually there would be more, because Jehovah's Witnesses are outside of the Anabaptists, as far as I know, or outside of, I would say, the kingdom churches that we usually think of, the Quakers, Brethren, and Mennonite, those groups that hold both to non-resistance and the two kingdoms, and are not liberal. So we had a big head start that way. And after we left the Witnesses, we definitely found ourselves in a no man's land. It's like the brother was sharing last night. Our first quest was to find a peace church. We didn't know it by the name non-resistance. We just knew we didn't believe in going to war. And I guess I've always been a student of history, so I did know about the three historic peace churches, the Mennonites, Quakers, and the Brethren. And so this was before the days of internet. It was back in the 70s. And so I went to the public library and found an address for all three of those. I wrote the Quakers, and of course I got their general meeting, and I got some literature and a nice letter inviting me to their I don't know what they call it, the conference or annual meeting, or yeah. And I looked at the topics. One of them was about accepting lesbians and gays, and I forget some of the other ones, but I decided no, thank you. I don't think I'm too interested. And we wrote the Mennonites, and the address was the General Conference for the Mennonites. And I looked at their positions, and it was like, no, I don't think we're interested in the Mennonites. Now, see, there's only one kind of Jehovah's Witness, and so we just assumed there's one kind of Mennonite, one kind of Quaker. And I thought, well, hopefully the Brethren will be a little bit better. And we finally got hold of some Brethren. Well, it was the Grace Brethren. And you may not even be familiar with them. They're basically just Protestants. I mean, there's very little Brethren left in them. And so I met with a fellow from the Grace Brethren, and I couldn't discern any difference between him and Baptists. I don't think he even held it to non-resistance, And so I thought, that's it. I've crossed off all three, and where do I go from here? And of course, none of them were in our hometown anyway. And so we attended a local church that was fairly liberal, which made it, at least the pastor was very open to pacifism or non-resistance, and so that made it nice. And you didn't have to believe anything other than that Jesus was the Son of God, so there was no doctrinal thing we had to subscribe to. And it was a place to, at least get started, and everyone was very, very nice to us. We got shown a lot of love there, and I appreciated that. And I started, trying to still search. We did find some evangelical Quakers in Dallas, Texas, but they were basically just Protestants, and so that was very disappointing. Eventually we joined a Bible church because we wanted a church that did believe in the Bible as the inerrant Word of God. And they had there was a wonderful pastor that helped Deborah and I get our feet on the ground spiritually, but we could never be happy because even though we were accepted with our non-resistance, it wasn't the position of the church. I remember our first church supper, we went to one of the elders. I mean, it wasn't, I don't even know why, but he just suddenly got up and said, "Do you know who led the charge every day at Gettysburg? The South," and everybody cheered, and it's like, oh boy, what am I doing here, anyway, but at least we had the support of the pastor, and that was nice. But I kept thinking there's got to be something, and the pastor gave me a book. It was just like what you experienced last night. Ron Sider, and we got hold of the politics of Jesus. It was always the same thing. Either you find someone who believes in the inerrancy of Scripture, who's conservative, or you find someone who doesn't believe in war, but it's always liberal. And there didn't seem to be someone who held to both. And it was so frustrating because Jehovah's Witnesses would believe in the inerrancy of Scripture, very conservative is what we were used to, and are non-resistance and teach separation from the world. They're not as separate as they think they are, but at least they taught it. And the two kingdoms, and they would be even more apolitical than we are. I mean, I don't remember ever having any political discussions or anything like that when we were Jehovah's Witnesses. And so, and people kept saying, well, David, it's just your Jehovah's Witness background. You need to let go of that. That's the problem, And I wondered, maybe that is it, but I wasn't going to just accept that because people were saying it, because I had accepted everything as a boy because I was raised Jehovah's Witness. So that's when I bought a set of the Ante-Nicene Fathers, the writings of the early Christians, and I decided I'm going to see what the historic faith was for myself. And I spent a year reading the writings of the early Christians before the time of Constantine to see what was it really like back then, how did they understand the Bible, and wow, I got a lot of surprises. For certain, they did not go to war. Yeah, they were non-resistant. They didn't take oaths. Jehovah's Witnesses explained the oath thing away. I don't know why, but I saw that they didn't take oaths. I discovered the head covering. Jehovah's Witnesses explained that away. And just discovered a lot of things that, some of it fit Jehovah's Witnesses, most of it didn't, And some of it, fit the Bible church we were going to, and most of it didn't. And so now I was really on a journey to where do we go from here? And so I started reading through history to try to find out, does any church even look anything like this? I saw after Constantine how things got lost, but did anyone rediscover these things? And when I got to the Reformation, I read Luther and Calvin and Zwingli, and I saw that they were in no way a restoration of the early church. And then I got hold of Menno Simons and Michael Sattler and read their writings. Michael Sattler, there's not very much. And I saw, okay, now we're getting back to the early church. Not perfectly, there's some differences, but we're getting very, very close. Lifestyle, almost exactly the same. And so this was exciting. But, I'd met the General Conference Mennonites, and they weren't like this. So it's like, okay, where do we go? And as things were, I think through God's guidance, Deborah's parents lived in Harrison, Arkansas. Does that ring a bell with any of you? Any of you seeing the connection? Yeah. The Mennonites have a nursing home they operate there. And I had figured if I was going to find one of these churches, if there was a church that didn't follow the normal pattern, I'd find it in a big city, you know. And so every time we traveled anywhere and we were in a big city, the first thing we would do, we'd get in the motel room and we'd grab the yellow pages. I mean, that would be the first thing every time. We'd turn to churches and we'd start going through there, to see what we could find, And the last thing we would expect is that we would find it in some little tiny town, But anyway, we were there in Harrison, Arkansas, and we thought, well, let's just see what's here, where we can go to church this weekend. And we're looking through, and we see Mennonite, And we're thinking, well, let's see what they have here. And they didn't have a separate church. It was just a Sunday service in the nursing home. And the speaker was a bishop from down in Texas. We didn't know they had a conservative church in Texas, and they didn't in the 70s when we had first started looking, but now it was the mid-80s, in fact, after the mid-80s. And so we were impressed. Now, we also thought they were a little nutty. I mean, it was like, whoa, what's with the suspenders and the, everything like that. But, sorry. but after getting past the shock, we thought, okay, this is now getting exciting, and so that got us on the track. There were a lot of other things, but it led to our eventually being here today where we are. So that's what we were seeking, was the historic faith, and brought us here from Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, others who come to our circles are seeking other things. And I've kind of summed up, I'd say, the major ones that I've seen from the years that I've been in Anabaptist circles, which has been a fairly long time. And the question and answers, you may have some other things that you've seen. I'm not trying to pick every little one, but the general big categories that I would say most have fallen in that I have noticed, okay? And if you've seen another one, let's talk about that, because I think we can learn from these, and I think the big thing we can gain is where we can focus our time and effort. Well, where are we going to get the most fruit, and where are we just spinning our wheels? And if you think I've misanalyzed, that's fine. This is just my analysis. It's not like it's a highly scientific thing, okay? First, I want to talk about those that I see as a general rule don't stay. They don't become Anabaptists. It doesn't mean we cold shoulder them or anything like that, but I don't know that it's where we necessarily want to target most of our time. And again, I'm open to feedback. One that I see, and Deborah and I noticed this right away when we started attending Mennonite churches many years ago. And that is those who are seeking financial help. Now, we certainly don't want to turn away the poor or that. But I would say from what we have seen, what we have experienced, very few of them become Anabaptists. But often they get the lion's share of our time, our finances, and attention. I would say the majority of what we've seen are divorced women with children. And yeah, it's very hard. It tugs on your heartstrings and that sort of thing. And somewhere you got to figure out where you're going to draw the line and what your policies are going to be. But having been in other churches, I just saw Mennonites would I'd say put time where other churches would probably have drawn a line at that. There's other places, and I think it's probably because our married sisters with children don't work outside the home, and so we're more inclined if a divorced woman comes to us that since our sisters don't work outside the home if they have children, then okay, well, yeah, we don't like to see her work outside the home, so we will support. She'll put on a head covering and maybe even a dress, but she's not really necessarily interested in becoming an Anabaptist. We will spend tons of time and money and all of that, and at some point, yeah, when the conditions become too much or whatever it is, yeah, she moves on, and yeah, that time is gone. And it can be a derelict guy. We tend to be a little harder on them, I would say, a little bit less inclined to help. We in our church, one of the ministries that have in our circle of churches have been helping children. We have a Bible study with children from projects that's in our town, Chambersburg, which has been a good ministry for our youth. And I think it's been good to having a Bible study with these children, and they don't expect anything from us. I don't think any particular money is spent on them. But a few of them, when they grow up, then they come back and are always wanting financial favors. I mean, Matthew 25 is an extremely important ministry, and I'd say the Mennonites, for our size, I think we outdo every church there is. And I'm not saying that out of any kind of, pride, but I really think, honestly, the Mennonites are the most effective at what I call Matthew 25 ministries, looking at CAM and a lot of other things. So we are terrific at that, and that is really good. I mean, I really believe so much in Jesus' words in Matthew 25. I just think it's very important. If we have money, I want to give it to CAM. I mean, $50 can make the difference in a refugee camp of whether someone lives or not, and just giving it to someone because, like in the case of, he's just lazy. I mean, that's all there is to it, and in a lot of other situations. And I think sometimes, like I say, we put so much time and attention on things that, just because they see that we are very gullible and that. I'd say probably the biggest group that we've gotten over the years are homeschoolers who are seeking a conservative church. Usually they're in a evangelical Protestant church, which those churches have moved liberal in a lot of areas. Often these people were used to, say, the King James Bible, and their churches started using the NIV, would be one thing. Or they were used to singing with a piano, and now it's electric guitars and drums and all of that. Or their churches started accepting divorce when they didn't used to. Some issues like that. And so a lot of these families then have started looking for something more conservative. And they find our churches, and we don't have electric guitars and drums and that, divorce, and most of our churches use the King James Bible. And so, they're drawn to our churches. The problem is, usually they weren't seeking Anabaptist values. They aren't necessarily looking at non-resistance and some of these other things. They're basically Protestant in their theology. They're just looking for something, strong family values and some things like that. Nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But I'd say a very large percentage leave after a period of time. Now, if you talked to me just maybe even 3 years ago, I would have said that's our fault. We lose so many people, and I would have said that's mainly our fault. And I'm not saying we are totally innocent. I'll say that. I think we can do a better job of maybe holding people. But I do realize that, if people aren't coming to our churches because of what we believe in and all the way, and they're wanting just part of the things they see, but not everything, yeah, it's not going to be a good fit, and it's probably in the end not going to work out. And in the discussion time, I'm I'll welcome feedback from anyone on that other than Kevin, but anyway, this has been, my thought, and part of this, I'm saying I know some things that are probably a little bit provocative, but I'm wanting, I'm trying to analyze. Somebody, I think Ernest, maybe made the comment in one of the church planners that maybe only 70, take it the other way, that maybe we lose about 75% of the people who come in our circles.
I was quoting you.
You were quoting me. Okay, well, I was quoting you.
Got an original source?
Yeah. I think we're both estimating, but I think that's probably a fairly accurate estimate from what I've seen. And I'll just give you the example. The church that was closest to us in Texas, it was a conservative Anabaptist church. And we were around it for 14 years. And they had the finest pastor you could ask for. You certainly couldn't blame anyone leaving on his account. In fact, if you ask most of the people, they would have said one of the reasons they were there was because of him. Just wonderful brother. But the last time we were there, none of the people that we had known during those 14 years were still there. They had 100% loss, okay? And, I would have blamed that mainly on them at one time. And certainly, they had some upheavals in the church, and that's often when they lost people, So our failings do lead to people leaving, People come in because we dress differently. I think people often have unrealistic expectations. They see a guy with suspenders, they think, man, this guy must be just really holy, because he's got these suspenders, and
That's all it takes.
But because we do dress different, and hopefully our lifestyle, and I do believe it is noticeably different than that of most churches, but we are imperfect. But it takes a while maybe to discover some of the imperfections, and so after a few years, people notice the imperfections. Maybe there's a little upheaval in the church, something like that, and then they realize, well, hey, I thought these guys were perfect, and man, they've got failings, and all that, and so, I try to let people know when they first start coming, please realize we are not perfect people. You're going to see, failings in us and all of that, but I hope at the same time you find that we go further than most churches in living by the teachings of Jesus. Part of what Ernest shared yesterday, I thought was really good. I think it would be nice if we had that in a brochure or something that we could just give people that, hey, this is what we are about. It's not necessarily saying that this is what you have to be a Christian, but we are 500 years old. We have developed a culture, and the culture is what has held us together for 500 years. Now, there are certain things that, maybe aren't necessary, and there's certain things that maybe need to be dropped, But every subgroup does have a culture of its own. If they say they don't, they're not being honest. They probably don't necessarily realize it. Jehovah's Witnesses, when you get in there, it's not as noticeable as our culture, but it is there. And I think if people, maybe realize, okay, there's things we've developed that have helped hold us together. That might be good. On the flip side, I think we need to keep examining, okay, are these things that are negative, that are holding people out. The things you listed yesterday, I think for the main part, I would see as very positive things, that attract people. Certainly the family things, I'd say were, for me, one of the very big things in addition to the teachings of the Bible. When I saw the families, the Bible church I went to, Deborah and I, when we went there, were around 30. When we became members, we were 30 years old, and we were there 10 years. And the couples who were around our age, the ones we hung out with, today, I think only one of those couples is still married. And that is just... And while we were there, they were dropping like flies. I mean, and there were quite a few young couples, and that was just for us. I mean, like I said, Jehovah's Witnesses don't have quite as strict a view as we do, but it was pretty strict. I mean, I can't think of any of my friends who got divorced, and when I check on them these days, they're still married. The Jehovah's Witness friends I had, and it was just nice when we joined Shippensburg or started attending there regularly. Yeah, just knowing that the couples I was seeing, they were going to still be there, and the stability was one of the big drawing factors for me. Okay, now, in talking to a lot of people who have been around the Mennonites and have stayed, and then some of you who are fairly new, one of the things I heard a lot, and so I'm saying this is maybe a characteristic of those who stay, although some of you who told me this are fairly new, so it may or may not be the golden thing, but it might be something we want to focus on in our attention and time. I was hearing things like, I was seeking for authentic Christianity. I was looking for something real. I was seeking a church that upheld all of the teachings of the Bible without compromise. I was looking for a simple lifestyle and brotherly community. So those were some of the things I heard from a lot of people. I'm kind of summing up how they phrased it. So I think that has a lot to do with it. That was, essentially mine. I was looking, for the early church, but again, what was authentic Christianity? And I do think that is basically what we have to offer. Not perfect Christianity. It is not, if authentic means what it was like in the very beginning, we're not exactly a replica of the early church. In lifestyle, I would say we are almost a perfect replica, using applications in our lifetime. So I'd say that's pretty good. 21 centuries later, that we can, open up the early church and say, hey, this is exactly what they said and what they did too. So we do have something very real to offer people. And I think that is something, we need to help people to find. Someone said yesterday, which is very true, Anabaptists are very good at dividing, not very good at multiplying. Now, we are growing, but it's not from making converts. I'd say we're good at multiplying, but it's in a different way than making converts. Now it's interesting, we call this a seekers gathering, and that is an appropriate word. But it's kind of sad in a way. It is appropriate because we are seekers. Once here, we were seeking you. We found you for the most part. You didn't find us, okay? We were looking, and we found the Anabaptists. I mean, like Mike Black here, he and his wife and family have been attending our church for a year. He got on the internet, and started looking. What were you Googling?
I found it through your website, but I was just trying to find anybody that held to those values that you talked
Okay, so yeah, I had to just get on, and he didn't know there'd be anything in his area, and just was looking, and eventually took him to Scroll Publishing, and then he found out, oh wow, they're in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, and he was in Hagerstown, Maryland, which is only like 15 miles, 20 miles away, and so it connected. But yeah, he was telling us last night he had to go through quite a bit to find our phone number and everything else, and a lot of people would have just given up. But yeah, we didn't find him, and it was the same way on our journey. If we had waited for Anabaptists to find us, yeah, we would have never found. We would still be in Texas waiting. I'm not saying that as a dig. I'm just saying that's the sad reality. I mean, we were the ones going to the library and this and that, going through the phone book and those kind of things, or else we would have never found the Anabaptists. It's very different with other groups, not all other groups, but I would say those who are good at multiplying, like Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, we didn't ever use the term seekers, because I don't know that. I can't think of anyone ever walking in the door in the Kingdom Hall and was looking for something. We were out looking for people, knocking on their doors. We were at subways, airports, doing things to find other people. We were the seekers, seeking what we called sheep-like people, and which meant and we thought that these were people who were godly, looking for God, and in reality it means, I think, a little bit gullible people and people who don't question or whatever. But yeah, we were the seekers looking for people. At the Anabaptist Identity Conference in March, how many of you were there? Any of you? Okay, cool. Yeah, a number of you. I was assigned the topic to talk about Jehovah's Witnesses, and the reason I was asked to talk about them is because they're targeting the Old Order Amish. And I was speaking in Holmes County, where there's a lot of Amish, and just to kind of let them know about all the errors of Jehovah's Witnesses, to just help buffer them against that, and it sort of irritates me that Jehovah's Witnesses are doing that. On the one hand, on the other hand, secretly I have to kind of admire it too, that, they've taken the time. They're not just targeting them in the sense of knocking on their doors. Jehovah's Witnesses are taking the time to learn Pennsylvania Dutch, so they can knock on their doors and talk to them in Pennsylvania Dutch and all of that, and I'm thinking, why isn't it us who are taking the time to do things, and that's why you would never talk about seekers as a Jehovah's Witness, because, we didn't have seekers coming to us. We were seeking them and brought them in. And, well, like in our congregation when I grew up, there were maybe 12 to 15 families in our congregation, plus, visitors on a given Sunday. Of those 12 to 15 families, including all of the leaders, every single person there was a convert. Not a single one was a cradled Jehovah's Witness. And it would be a little different today. You see more second, third generation Jehovah's Witnesses, but everybody was a convert. And so it was so normal. I mean, you wouldn't talk about, are you a seeker here? Are you it was just, if you had a gathering of Jehovah's Witnesses who were converted to it, well, it'd be the same thing as the ones who, it'd just be your congregation, and it wasn't a lot different as evangelicals. We didn't go out and knock on doors, but there were other ways that we reached out that were maybe just as effective. And I'd say our congregation that we went to, the Bible church, probably at least 50% were people who were converted from a non-evangelical background, including our pastor. And so again, it would have been kind of strange. You didn't talk about seekers. Not very many people just walked in the door. If they came to church, it's because someone invited them, and then church was used as an evangelism method. Almost every sermon ended up with some kind of invitation, salvation message, and so people would try to bring your unchurched, unsaved neighbors and friends to church, and that was a pretty effective method, for the message that they taught. So I'll be glad when the day comes when there's no need for secret gatherings. Not because I don't like what we're doing today, but just it'd be nice when that day's not here. When there's, we're the ones out doing the seeking, and when there's so many people here from non-Anabaptist backgrounds in our circles that there's nothing unusual about it. You're not tagged as a seeker, because so many Anabaptists aren't. In the beginning, no one was a cradle Anabaptist. Everybody was a convert. But having said that, for those of you who aren't cradle Anabaptists, I'm glad you've kept the torch going 500 years. I mean, I'm deeply, deeply grateful for that. That when we were searching, there was something to find. It would have been very discouraging if, in the end, we would have had to try to start something from scratch. Okay, now, one of the things when I was talking to people yesterday was I also learned how they found us. Some of them, in fact a number, it was through personal contact. Spicer mentioned she was in a fabric store, and she noticed, I think it was a plain couple, she noticed the wife, she said, had a bounce in her step and a smile on her face. And they were at the counter checking out together, and the plain sister, was very helpful to her, the one with the smile on her face, and they struck up a conversation, and that led to where they're attending church now, which is the church where Ernest is. Ted, he and his wife, because he uses a Belgian horse in his work, they were in Lancaster County, was attending to horse care, getting horse supplies or whatever, and encountered plain people there and were impressed with them and developed a relationship through that. The church in Texas that we attended for a number of years, the last time we were down in Texas, which was last year, we stayed with the pastor, and we met a couple who just started attending the church, and they were there because they met the pastor's granddaughter. She's a married woman in her 20s. She's just an extremely outgoing person. They were in a grocery store, and she struck up a conversation, or maybe they asked her about her head covering, something like that. But anyway, and we'll see where that goes from there. Wrong here was in a public park, and he and Ernest. I don't know if Ernest reached out to him or the other way around. Personal contact is important. It won't happen if we don't go up and talk to people, or at least have a smile on our face where they feel comfortable talking to us. And I do hear a lot, an awful lot, that many plain people don't have smiles on their faces. And it may not be intentional. Often I don't. I don't know. It's something with something with the way I was born. When I think I'm smiling, it looks like I'm frowning to people. I have to really work to make sure. I'm serious. One day, it was a spring day when I was a boy. I was a teenager. I was happy as a lark. I thought I had a big smile on my face. I was going to the public library to get some books, and I just thought I was so happy. And as I went to the door, a lady came out the door, and she looked at me and she said, "Is it that bad?" Ever since then, I'm just like, am I smiling? It's probably not intentional, but it's made me aware that, okay, make sure I look like I'm smiling. I think I'm smiling, but make sure other people know that I am. But I think, we need to, if it's not necessarily just the way we naturally look, because no one's going to go up to someone with a frown, and it really, really turns them off if plain people look like, we don't enjoy life, and so why would you want to go to someone's church that, boy, they look miserable and that? I mean, it just kind of tells them that, wow, these poor people, they must just be, whipped with a switch every Sunday or whatever, is why they attend church and are afraid not to or something. So, let's make it easy, but even better, let's take the step to reach out and talk to people. I mean, I'm so ashamed of myself. When I was a Jehovah's Witness, I mean, we were taught, to do that, and I'm still the same David Bercot, but when I was a Jehovah's Witness, I mean, if I sat next to someone on an airplane or a bus, I always struck up a conversation and tried to get it towards the kingdom, so I could witness or something. And now, I usually start reading a book or something, and I think, wow, what has changed? I still love God as much, but the witnessing, it's just not emphasized, in our churches, and so I've gotten lazy about it, and it's easier not to than to do it. We really need to develop that ethos because, often people are curious and are interested in hearing, something different, and you never know. The person next to you might be going through a crisis, that you hit them in the right moment, and God often directs those things, that you do sit next to the person who needs to hear a message. He sees that you get in that seat, and we need to take advantage of those kind of things. We need to take advantage of the internet. Right now we have 3 local families attending our church, which in a Baptist church that would be nothing. I mean, they'd say, well, so what? That's kind of bad, But in our churches, that's always a kind of a nice sign. I say 3. One of them, it's a guy around my age. His wife doesn't attend, but he hardly ever misses. And they've all been attending a year. They all started coming about the same time. Of those 3, 2 of them found us on the internet. And neither one was, our church doesn't have a website. This was one, Mike was searching for, authentic Christianity and found Scroll Publishing. And the other man was looking for Anabaptists, and he found Dean Taylor's history lessons there on YouTube. YouTube is definitely the place people go. I mean, Scroll Publishing has a YouTube site, but I don't know if our church allowed it at the time. We didn't put it up. Finney Kerrville had put it up for us. People are out there searching, and that is one place they go for information nowadays. It used to, I think, mainly be a music site or something. I don't know. But like I say, 2 of the 3 found it, and the one who found Dean Taylor's history lessons, there was an email there, so he emailed Dean Taylor. He said, I live in Chambersburg. Would you know anyone here who would have similar values as you? Of course, Dean Taylor and I were in the same church in Texas for 10 years, Dean got that and he said, I don't believe this. This is like from God or something, And so he wrote the guy back and said, I actually have a good friend there. And so he forwarded it to me, and I called the man up, and like I say, he's been attending faithfully ever since. It's a big stretch for him. He's always, coming up to me after my sermons and says, are you going to do this to me every Sunday, turn me upside down and that? But he seems to be willing to get stretched, so we'll see where it all ends up. But I think at least we can do, if we're not ready to go out being the seekers, at least we can make it a lot easier for the ones who are seeking to find us. One of the things I noticed, we were talking last night sitting around, when people have asked us, okay, is there a church in a certain area, and I have gone to the, what was the site you were telling me? Amish Mennonite or?
Beachy Amish.
Yeah. and you go there and then it says contact us or something. Well, when you go there, then it asks you to put in your information and they'll contact you. And that's better than nothing. That's what Mike did. But I know if it were me, I would be real hesitant, like, ooh, I don't know you people and I don't want to give you my phone number and all of that. There needs to be a number where people can contact us, but obviously that could take a lot of somebody's time. But wow, with all of our resources, it would seem like, we could, that could be a ministry of CAM that could be donated to, that there could be a call line for people who want to contact Anabaptists. I don't know if it's ever been talked about. It's not CAM's fault, but I'm saying, whoever the powers be, something needs to be done where people can have a number who are seeking, so that we don't make it quite so hard to find Anabaptists. That's, I think, just a minimum step that we can do. And I think there's more. I think some of the resistance in the beginning, just for some of you like Ted who are kind of new, if you're wondering, what I'm even talking about, Anabaptists, I think rightfully have been, every new technology we're a little suspicious about, because technology can be used for bad things, and the internet is obviously a huge danger, and I think most of our church allows it, but we require, if you have internet, that you have an accountability filter like Covenant Eyes on it, and somebody else, either your wife or a brother in the congregation, is getting a report of where you go, just for safety, because it is a great danger, and I fully support that. And so, there's been that reluctance, on the internet. I think some of that's breaking down, because we see now it's how people communicate and that. But yeah, so we've been a little bit slow, I think, to make use of it, and it empowers us as a small group of people we can reach the whole world. We have the same presence as Exxon or Amazon. We can put up a website, and it, with a little work, you can, have it come up in the search results. It takes a little bit of work to get it up high, but yeah, you can reach the people with the message that we have, and I think God will hold us accountable for not, doing some of these minimal steps that we can take advantage of.